Today I have Steve Cook with me. Steve, it's a great honor and pleasure having you here. So, even though you're very well known, maybe some people need a quick reminder who you are. So could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, well, I am a professor of computer science emeritus at the University of Toronto. Actually, recently retired as of July 1st, so they've now finally turned off my salary, and they're going to probably eventually kick me out of my office. But that
It's really happening?
It's not, well, it hasn't happened yet, and I'll get some kind of office, but the department, of course, is hiring new faculty like mad, since computer science is the big thing now, and so there will be people, there'll be a problem of rooms for faculty, office space.
So in Germany, it's like for the older professors, they still get emeriti, meaning that they still keep an office space and still get a salary.
No, emeritus is just another word for retired, and it doesn't. Actually, I have been officially emeritus for some time, but I had a contract, so I was So there was mandatory retirement in 1965. When I turned 65, sorry. When I turned 65, the law at the university was you had to retire. There was no choice. And so I had a contract, so okay, you can stay on for a limited number of periods.
Okay, cool. So the topic of this series is being human with algorithms, and the focus is on the digital transformation. So having especially computer algorithms being part of more and more parts of the daily life, ranging from the product I hold in my hand, for instance, is running algorithms, but even this product here, algorithms were part of the production. So either in the direct production or in the transportation. So it's impossible, I would say, today in big areas of life to live without algorithms. So this digital transformation, what does it mean to you?
Well, it means, you mean my personal, of course, it's made quite an effect on me since computers. I mean, when I started off and with my PhD thesis in 1966, we didn't really have, well, we had very primitive computers then, but we didn't even have Xerox machines. So I typed, or actually I had the secretary type my thesis. And then they made carbon copies, so because they didn't even have Xerox machines. So things have come a long way. Absolutely. And yes, I do have a laptop computer. I have a cell phone, but I have to admit I don't use the cell phone very much. But I do use the laptop. I do use the desktop computers, and of course they're extremely useful. I use them for email, and that's very important, and use them for going online and answering questions.
And what would you say is the biggest difference to when you think like 15 years ago? So is it the connectivity that you are always online? Is it the new forms of communication, like having chats and FaceTime, Skype, video conferencing, and so on?
So I'm old enough, so I don't tend to chat. That is, so I do have a cell phone, as I say, but I don't really use it. And so my chatting is via email. So that email certainly has had a big effect on me. I do like that. I do communicate. And since I'm a little hard of hearing, that's part of the problem with the cell phone, and so I can read. I
Yeah.
can read.
Yeah.
And so I find that email is very, very useful.
Yeah.
And of course, Google
Yeah.
is extremely useful
Yeah.
now, because I frequently want to ask questions that I should know or want to know.
Yeah.
And it's easy. Just
Yeah.
ask Google, and Google
Yeah.
usually has the answer. So I find that extremely useful.
And do you also see a shift in the people, that knowledge is now available literally at the fingertip when you write something into Google, and people are less spending the time in reading like a book with a background about it, or like actually memorizing something, so that it shifts from knowing something towards knowing how I can find something?
I think that is true to some extent. That's right. It's especially useful to me with a fading memory. And so in my case, yes, absolutely. If I forget something that I know, I can look it up, and that's as far as reading goes. Well, we still have textbooks. When the courses I told, well, at least one of them had a textbook, and so I could assign problems reading from the textbook. A lot of the stuff was just online because I made up my own notes, and they were online. So the computer was certainly playing a big role there.
Yeah.
We still have books, though, and it's still occasionally useful to look them up and to read. Yeah.
Yeah. And how would you say, did you personally shape this digital transformation, or how did you shape it?
I don't know about me. I think, as you know, I'm famous for introducing the idea of NP completeness, which is the issue of certain problems are difficult to solve and seem to be difficult to solve, so that's very interesting. So I don't know that my work itself has changed how we actually use computers. I mean, it's really kind of a negative concept to show something is NP complete, and it's going to be a hard problem to solve. So that would be the application. Don't spend a whole lot of time trying to solve the problem. Probably it's going to be really, really difficult.
And sticking with the NP hardness, so is there an iconic example, especially for those who are maybe not totally familiar with the concept, where you would say, okay, so this is where my theory applies, and where you have an actual connection to activities that you do?
Yeah. So the traveling salesman problem, I suppose, where you have 100 cities, and you know the distance between every pair of cities, and the salesman has to travel to each city somehow, and the question is, what order do you use to minimize the total distance? And that problem is NP hard, and but as in practice, okay, you're probably not going to be able to find the shortest distance. What order you take the cities the shortest, but maybe that isn't that important, because there are algorithms for finding nearly the shortest system. So.
And also the real systems are typically finite, and so then...
Well, they're finite, but they could be big.
Yeah,
they
that's
could
right.
be big enough so that it really is difficult to find the absolute shortest route. But you don't really need to do that. You just need to find a reasonably short one. So that's just one example. But,
and maybe about the complexity theory and cryptography. Could you say something about the relation there?
Yeah, I mean, cryptography certainly is a much harder, showing things are possible or impossible cryptographically is harder than NP completeness, but it certainly, the idea of NP completeness has certainly influenced the theory of cryptography, no question about that. Yeah.
Okay. When you think about this digital transformation, what would you say are the biggest challenges that we're currently facing with this societal change?
So I guess security is one obvious thing. Of course, we'd like to pay for credit, pay with credit cards online, but we worry about people challenging and finding out our credit card numbers. So security is certainly a serious issue there.
And when you also think about the defining of the people as humans, like moving towards a digital representation of the self, when you think about children that are like using their smartphone more often than going out with other children, playing on the street, do you see that there's also an impact on society, like a negative or a positive one, of having such a shift in the habits?
It absolutely seems to be huge. It doesn't affect me, I'm too old.
Yeah.
But you're right, you see people walking down the street all the time and they're just looking at their cell phones.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, instead of chatting with people physically, they just seem to be absorbed on their cell phones, which is, that's a change. It seems not too good, dangerous for one thing. If you're pedestrian and not paying attention, or even if you're driving the car, people are still looking at
and so
there's
I don't know if you noticed that, at least in Germany, there's an interesting development, because when you have some, I think they call escalators also in English, these automatic steps that are moving. And so there they started now to have some signs on the ground that are a red or a green line, so that the people don't even have to look up from their smartphone, because when they look down, they already see if something is happening or not. And with the subway in Munich, it's the same thing. So
because they're looking at their cell phone going down, and so
the reality is adapting to that, so that they can continue with their habit with just looking down, which is also very, very interesting.
I guess so.
To me.
Yes.
And,
as I hadn't thought of that, but maybe our people are probably too much involved with their cell phones. They should be talking directly to each other, I think.
And so to me, it's also fascinating that it's a very immersive experience, because of course you have this mobile phone as device that you use for communication, but you are not interacting with a program on the phone. Like, I mean, some are doing it like playing games or something.
That's true.
But you also are like talking to your friends. So
That's
it's like
true.
you carry those that are significant to you with you, and you're permanently connected. So
well, that's true. I guess you are being social in a sense. I don't do it, so I can't really say, but it doesn't seem to be the same as talking to people in the face-to-face. Well, I guess now you can even see their expressions on the phone, can't you?
So. Yeah, that's right. And it's like, what is interesting to me is that it's on the one hand asynchronous, so you write something and then someone else can consume it whenever it fits. But at the same time, the expectations of answering fast are very high. So it seems to dictate the rhythm of what people do, because it's like shaking in your pocket, and then it's like, okay, I have to check what happened, and then I have to answer quickly because everybody else is also answering quickly. It's a little bit like with the email, when you have the email notifications on, and then the email comes and you immediately interrupt what you do and you switch to the email, you answer it, and then you go back to your other task. And having these lots of context switches, which is always a challenge to me.
So in my case, I do use email, but I don't use it that way. I don't feel I have to answer questions immediately. maybe a few times a day. Okay, now I'm going to look at my 50 email messages and I just go through them. And I don't feel I have to answer them. So I guess people know that, and so they're not expecting it.
So it's and it's good that you did that. So it's also the thing I do. Like whenever I get a new computer, the first thing I do is I disable the email notifications so that it doesn't disrupt me, but I can define when I want to look at it.
Absolutely.
And so I think the thought that you just said, like, okay, there are these opportunities, but you still have to think about how you want to use the new technology and how much you want it to control you, and not you controlling the technology. This is, to me, this is a key aspect of what we have today, and also a big challenge, because there are lots of opportunities, and people have to try to cope with these technological offers.
Yes. So I guess different people cope differently. Us old people, I guess, are more stubborn.
And when we come from the challenges to the opportunities, so what would you see as the most positive thing? So we were talking about connectivity already. So this could be one answer, that you say, okay, it's good having this connectivity that is like much faster with the email, like with a letter, for instance, and also a different form of communication, because you can faster play the ball back and forth.
That's true. I mean, when I started out, of course, as a professor, I wrote letters, actually, even mailed them. And you're right, it takes much longer, of course, to get a communication that way. And so now we can do it at our own time. That's true.
And so this will be like the key aspect for you for the digital transformation, the key positive one that you are like really personally taking benefit of.
Absolutely benefit. I will say that email is extremely useful, and I don't. I do like to make sure I go through every day. I don't want to let them back too long, but on the other hand, they won't expect instant answers from me.
Yeah, and I think this is a good relation to it. Maybe coming to another aspect about this speed of technological advance. Do you have when you look back like the last 30 years, maybe do you also have this impression that I have, that it's like the pace is increasing of innovations and things that change your human being?
I guess that's true, yes. I suppose the biggest change now is the threat of artificial intelligence. That's a big deal now, and in some ways a concern. I guess to us, us thinking people who might worry about being put out of a job now, ultimately.
Yeah. And how would you formulate the threat? So which is are the relevant aspects of it?
Well, if I'm a mathematician and I'm trying to prove a theorem, it's expected that I might spend even years on working on it. But if we really have very, very smart artificial intelligence computers, they might really be able to do it really fast. And so where does that put us as mathematicians? Ultimately, that's the threat. I mean, here's the issue. Our brains are just elaborate computers. And extremely elaborate, extremely really good. But there's going to come the time when we can build brains and maybe better brains, right? There's no reason why not. And what do we do then?
And what will happen when we go into that direction? What will happen with the personality? So is the personality something that you would consider important? Because it's like when we think about things like making proofs or theorems or something like that, then personality might be a good tool because it hints you in certain directions. But if you're a fast computer and you can do brute force or somehow intelligent branching, then you will also find the solution. But is personality, because for me, like, personality is something that differentiates even the most intelligent machine from a human, because a machine it probably doesn't make sense to give it too much personality unless it's about to interact with a human and you want to hide that it's a machine.
I suppose you could, ultimately, you could put in personality too, I suppose, if you wanted, because they say that they're just brains or computers, so you just have to simulate the brain, right?
Yeah. And would it make sense to put it in? Would you say?
I don't know. I mean, it's a concern. What do people do then? Even us mathematicians, what do we do when the computers can solve problems better than we can?
Yeah.
And so that's worrisome. I mean, right now we may feel important and we're really contributing to stuff, and that could change, I guess. So what good are people, or what can we do to make ourselves happy? And I guess the only thing I can think of is competition. We can compete with each other like as athletes in sports, right? When people run the 100-meter dash course, there are all kinds of things that can go faster, but you don't care. It's what people can do, right? And so mathematics, maybe we're just have our own puzzles and competitions. I don't know. What else is there?
And this is a very, very interesting aspect that we came up to. So in a panel discussion that we had on Friday, there, Catherine Jamul, a blogger, she said, or Jonas Bedford, one of them was it, that when you have these algorithms and machines taking over the jobs, then one thing you could do is you could say you just give them unconditional income, the people, and they don't have to work. And I mean, you could do that. But the aspect that you were also like mentioning, which the two were also talking about, is also dignity. So dignity as a human, that you feel like more worth when you have something useful to do.
Yes, absolutely. That's very important. You feel you're doing something useful, that makes you feel good. Absolutely. So how do we manage that?
Cool, nice. And we're already coming to the end. So what do you connect with the motto, like being human with algorithms? So what does this slogan tell you? What does it mean to you?
Humans are algorithms, so I'm not sure what to say here. I mean, so we have to find a new way of being happy and feeling good. And the only way I can think of offhand is we can't cheat and use computers. We have to have to use ourselves only. I don't know what else. I mean, it hasn't quite happened yet, so I haven't thought this through carefully. But it's a looming problem. It's a looming problem.
So maybe if you allow me to put even another question, namely, so the algorithm, going back to the algorithmy, and so algorithms is something that exists for maybe forever since humankind, or for a very long time. So do you see a being like a rule for doing something? So what would be your current definition of what an algorithm is?
Of what to do, how to solve this problem, of what people can do. I don't know.
No, I mean like when you want to explain someone what an algorithm is. So what would be your definition?
Oh, what definition of an algorithm? Just a set of rules to solve a problem, I suppose.
Because the reason why I asked the question is that in the discussion in the media, the term algorithm is often seems to be negatively connotated today, because it's going into this direction. It's artificial intelligence, something like this HAL in Odyssey 2001, some super intelligence power that wants to take the humans out of Earth and rule the Earth instead. And indeed, like the word algorithm in itself is not negatively connotated, and so this is why
we all. I mean, the fact is, our brains are using algorithms, and so we're all using algorithms. That's the fact. Maybe you're right, and it has somehow If you're using creativity, you're not using an algorithm. Well, even that isn't clear.
Yeah. And so Peter Weibel was one of our people in the symposium as well. He's the director of the Zentrum für Kunst und Medien, so Center for Art in Karlsruhe, and so art and video installations and media. And so he was citing, I guess it was Newton, who said that the book of nature is written in the language of mathematics. And do you have a thought about this? So it was like math first, or was nature first?
I don't know. So what is this book of?
It's just a quote that is said to be his, and it's also written there that when you have processes in nature, that you can describe them with mathematical rules.
Yeah.
And so the question is like this hen and egg problem. So you could say like, okay, is mathematics the universal rule of the universe, so that the processes can be described in a mathematical way, and then the nature follows these rules? Or is mathematics more the human brain understands processes in a way that can be very well described with mathematical rules, and so it's for us humans, it's a good tool to describe the perception and the processes that we are able to perceive?
Yeah, well, as I say, our brains are all just following algorithms, I think. So we can't dodge them. In order, whatever we do, we're going to follow some kind of algorithm. It may be very sophisticated algorithms. That's all. So.
And would you say that this is something like, okay, humans do it, but do also animals? Do they also follow algorithms? Or
I guess they do. I guess they do. Yeah. Their brains control what they do. So they are. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then, I think we have very nice insights, and I thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, cool. Yeah, very nice. Very good.
Okay.
So, I think it was very interesting. And this math, nature thing. So this is really something that also always like puzzles me. Is like the math is something that is correlated with our perception. And so,
Mark, you said Mark?
No, math. So it's like the mathematical rules. Is it like something that we can very well use as humans, because it's something that is connected to our perception, and as we can only perceive a certain part of the reality, this is a good model to describe this part of the reality? Or is it something more universal that is like only to be discovered by humans? So this would also have been an interesting question. So it's like
so first, I guess there are a couple of things. One is physics, the laws of physics, I suppose, and presumably they can be expressed mathematically. That seems to be what people think, and then actually with quite a bit of success so far. So that's one thing, and of course it's a huge mystery where all these physical laws of physics came from. That's another fascinating point. So I mean, okay, in physics, that's we certainly there are. I think the physical universe is following algorithms. Now, maybe probabilistic algorithms. I don't know. There may be. Yeah, but that's okay. That's a kind of algorithm too.
And is Mars something that gets developed or discovered by humans?
For the universe, presumably it was all just made somehow. We don't know how to explain that.
And then it would be more discovery. So it's like the math is there, and the humans have to discover it.
That's right. That's right. We don't invent the laws of physics.
Yeah,
They're there.
That's certain. Yeah, or at least hopefully it's certain. Yeah, so that the models won't break down one day. So
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice. Good. Pleasure.
Okay.
Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.